Again, everything has been reset. So I hit the mask button, only controls, grab everything. And I know you're not animating this control. So I'm going to grab this, but then I'm going to deselect this because I'm not animating that. And I'll just go through, hit S on every single key just to make sure everything's blocked in. I'm also going to check, oops, boy, I'm going to check that frame 1 and 25 are the same. So that is completely correct. Good. Then I'm going to put everything into linear just because this will just make life a little bit easier to work with. All right. Now the hip, first place to go clean up in spline is the hip. And what you're looking at is like the up and down. And I think last week, did I show a little demo of like this leopard walk cycle that I was showing? I did, right? And one of the tricks that I was using is I was using a little sphere to sort of track the movement. And one of the things that I noticed with the leopard, the way that it was walking, was that it dropped sort of faster with more energy, more acceleration than going up. Okay. So right now we have completely even spacing, right? So the way that it's blocked in right now, the way you go up is steeper than the way you go down. And that might not be what you want, right? So right now there's a little bit of an asymmetry. Sometimes it's exactly the same, just the way that you block things in. So this creates a texture. So this rig is bouncing up. It's more springy. It springs up faster than it goes down. So that creates kind of, again, a good analogy looking at animals is like the way a squirrel bounces, right? It spends kind of more time in the air than it does, right? Going down is different than going up. But something that's heavier is usually more of a thump, where it's sort of just like we were looking at the leopard. Going up is like all that weight has to go up. It's a little bit more evenly spaced than the thump. So what we could look at is the way that we get to here. I could play around with this pose and I could say, well, if I'm going to go up, I could make that a little bit less extreme. Rather than going up this high, I could say, let's make that a little bit lower. So now it's going to be a little bit less of a height change. It's going to take more time to get up there. And now it's not so springy, right? So it's just by moving those 2 points. And I'm moving both because it's the same pose, just opposite sides, right? So the pair. So I'm just adjusting this pose. And this makes it different than the formula. And that's totally fine, right? At this point, why does this keep popping? I'm just trying to figure out how to work with this and get something that's a little bit more interesting. I know when I hit the low point, I probably want to flatten everything out. So when I spline this, it's going to be smooth. Then I'm going to go up. And again, I might spline this part and this part. There, hit that with auto tangent. And auto tangent never does the nicest job. I always, it's, you gotta kind of clean this up. But I put a little script in here that does a little bit of a different take on auto tangent. So auto tangent, whenever you hit this, it never does the best job. I would like to kind of line up the handles along a point. If I hit that again, right, the whole point, it's gonna make it a little bit of a kink, right? It's not exactly what you want. There's another script that I have up here called TR Auto, and it just does things differently. It's a very similar thing. It runs auto tangent, but it just has a different take on the same approach to smooth out a curve. And I'll usually try this one, and then I'll go try this one, or I'll just do it manually. If you don't have this script, then you just have to do that manually. And this makes the curve look a little bit more like a shark fin. And those are usually more interesting curves than just a bell-shaped curve. Bell-shaped curve is very even, and it doesn't really feel like there's any gravity or muscles at work. All right. And when I look at the low point, you have the rig quite low to the ground. So what I would do is grab everything and then scale that low point and then see how I'm doing. The high point, I can't do much with, right? The high point, and I would like to have a little bit of a break on that leg. There we go. And then the low point, I think that still needs some work. So I would look over here and see how that contact point. Yeah, maybe that contact point should be a little bit higher. I might just grab this and just move that point up and just okay, the contact poses, I want them to look like that. But the low point, I'll just grab the low points and kind of move those. And it still feels like the legs are bent a lot. So what I'm going to look at is maybe somewhere in here, yeah, maybe this one and this one, maybe these now have to be lifted up a little bit. And then again, I have to go and hit this thing with the TR Auto or something like that. bit better. Now, if I'm unhappy with the stride, if I feel like the stride length is a bit too broad, I can fix that in the graph editor. I can look at both of these at the same time. Just look at the translate Zs. And if I want, I can right click on the graph, the channel box here, and I can say sync selection in graph editor. If I have that checked, then when I toggle, what's supposed to happen is that it will only show the channel that you've got highlighted, but it's not working. I wonder what's wrong with this rig. Otherwise, I have to manually go here and hold control and look at both of them. And this is basically front and back, right? This is how far the feet go forward and back. If I want this to be a smaller distance, I would just grab all the curves and then say times equals 0.8. Now it's 80% of what it was. So I've basically shortened this by 20%. Okay, now that's going to create some issues with my poses, but it means I can go to the up and down on the hip and I can move it up. And I can scale things. I can go in here and say, okay, well, that works. I'm not running out of room. That's okay. But over here, yeah, that's not bad. I could adjust the low point again. And then I'm just going to hit everything here with this TR auto. Now, the only problem when you run scripts like AutoTangent, this other one, is what it will do is it will flatten the start and end keys, which is really annoying because what it does is it introduces a little bump right when you're hooking up the cycle. So a flat line means slow down and a steep line means speed up. So right when we're falling, if you look at this one, this is the same movement, but what's happening is this point, which is pointing straight down, and this one is now pointing like this. I have to try and match what I see over here so that they're going to connect. And that's not always easy to see. So one tool that we have when we're working with cycles is to cycle the curves. And we do that for the whole thing here. To cycle our animation so that it will loop endlessly, you grab all the curves that you want to cycle. In this case, it's the whole character. Then I'm going up to curves, pre-infinity, cycle, curves, post-infinity, cycle. Now, when you look at the graph editor, nothing has changed because I have to tell it to view infinity. And what this means is that this cycle of animation will continue to play even if I go past frame 25. So way out over here or over here, the cycle is always going. So even if I have 2000 frames, it will just be playing this 25 over and over and over again. So it's just a cycle. It's nothing else. It can only be a cycle. But what that helps you with visually is when you're looking at cleaning up stuff, you can look at the translate and you can see how the end of your animation connects to the beginning because it draws it there for you. So this is really useful so you can see how I finish a movement, how that translates over here. So I might grab like those two and just adjust it. I want it to look more like this one. Okay, so now I have like up and down is going to look a bit similar. Okay, so that's looking okay. Then it's a chance to experiment. And you're limited by how big the character's legs are, what it can do. So once you kind of have a range, then what you have to work with are these in-between positions. Say, well, how quickly do I push down and how quickly do I go up? So one thing I could do is I could take these positions over here and I could just move them one frame over. Right, so I could just do that for all of those positions. So now I've offset, and this is when you're really splining. I no longer care about having keys at 1, 4, 7, and 10. Now I'm looking at movement, and I don't care about the frame. I care about the movement. So I'm going to start messing things up. So now instead of having everything lined up in nice columns, they're going to get fuzzy. They're going to get all over the place because I'm just trying to clean it up and make the movement a little more interesting. Let's see. So I like this, but I think the way that we drop, I think I want that to be a little bit stronger. So what I'll do is this is okay. Going up is all right. But going down, what I might do is maybe I like that one, but I could take this position. Say, what if I take that and move it down? And then again, hit this thing with auto tangent or TR auto. And then I got to grab this, roll that down. Right, so now it's falling a lot sharper. It's got some nice texture to it. I think I can even go up a little bit higher. So I might take this point and just see if I can just nudge them up a bit and still have leg. I'm like, oh, can I go up a little more there? And then over here, yep, I'll grab the high point, yoink, there, just enough. Hit those with the TR auto. Right. And you'll usually reach a point where it feels too strong, where it starts to feel like it doesn't feel like it's moving the way I liked. Now it feels like I'm pushing it too far. So again, you might just decide, well, okay, let's just roll this back a frame. Let's roll that back a frame. So you can really play around. This is just like, it's like playing around with music software. You lay down a track and then you just look at it and you listen to it. And okay, I'll try a little bit of this, a little bit of that, until you get the texture you like. And I'll play around with the hips the most, because the up and down, that's the whole walk is there. That's the whole sense of weight. So that's why I spend so much time on this curve. I don't spend as much time on other curves, but this one, this gives me the weight. So I really want to make sure it's working.